Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Women's History Month, #Choose to Challenge. I am Luana Bradford, visionary and co-founder of Women Embracing Wellness, and I have the honor and privilege to have the amazing Debra L. Morrison with us today. Debra, how's it going?
It's great, Luana, and I can't be happier than to be here talking about celebrate you and challenging whatever we need to challenge and choosing to challenge.
Yes. So why don't we just get right into it and tell our listening audience a little bit about who is Debra and what things are you doing and how are you making a difference?
Well, thanks, Luana. I had spent 42 years in the financial services industry. And of course, that was pretty old white male industry. And I came straight out of college, literally worked in the corporate world for a half a day, gave my notice, and then went to be an entrepreneur. So all my adult life, I have worked as an entrepreneur in the financial services business. And we're breaking through all the norms. So the choice to challenge was, I was so enthralled with helping people, and the aspect of money was so intriguing to me. And then in particular, life insurance, which I really didn't even understand until people explained it. And I thought, holy camoly, this can keep businesses in place and families intact. And so I, led the agency in sales the first year, and as a 21-year-old. And so I went to national conferences, and I was the only woman in a double ballroom, right? So you've been there as a Black woman. I was there as a young whippersnapper. I carried a towel to wipe the wet behind my ears, and I bought a gray anthracite gray BMW because I needed to look like 40, right? And I had one little gray hair, and I pulled it right out to the front, and it was completely obvious. So, we do these things, right? Now, of course, I have now just sold my business last September, and I did practice as a fiduciary, bringing together people's goals and objectives on a fee-only basis, and then we manage their money as well. And with my master's in retirement planning, I'm choosing to challenge the fact that women have been so poorly socialized around money that I wanted to bridge some of those gaps. And I believe we did so in those clients' lives. So now I've developed a new company called Women Navigating Finances. And you can go to that website, bears the name womennavigatingfinances.com. And download a checklist and so forth, just to give yourself an idea of maybe some of the gaps that may still be in your financial plan. So I'm serving as a financial coach. I'm not advising. And yet I think with 42 years of experience, I've seen enough, right, of behavioral finance that differs so much from textbook, right, that I want to keep women on the trail of achieving their financial independence. And the best way they can do that is to avoid making big mistakes.
I love that. And you and I've talked many, many times about the financial crisis facing women and the need for women to get involved in the financial conversation and take ownership in establishing sustainability and building for their future, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Luana. And I gave a TED talk, and I was aimed toward mature women. And I say, it's not your fault because the socialization was so hard, whether it was socialization in general, our families, our religious events, etc. And yet it is our responsibility. And so we need to kind of engage very swiftly into something that has heretofore been a little bit probably something we would want to keep at arm's length. Why? Because we weren't taught about it. And so many of us love to do things we're good at, and we don't like so much to do things that we're not so good at. So that's why I think my role now as a coach is going to be really exciting and hopefully very beneficial to the women that coach with me. And I also have a little Facebook group called Women Navigating Finances, completely free. So pop in and we exchange ideas around that. So let's talk about the challenge, shall we? And the choice to challenge. Because
yes,
I am challenged gender equality pay, right? the salary disparity is untenable,
Yes.
and it continues. Now, we often hear the number, and I believe the number in 2018 was women made 82 cents. 2019, women made 82.3 cents for every dollar a male counterpart made. In 2020, women made 81 cents. So a slippage, right? Now, that's an average. Asian women actually have the slightest slippage. They earn 90 cents, actually, for the most part. White women earn 79 cents. Black women and brown women earn 62 cents. Indian and transgendered folks make 57 cents. And Latino and Hispanic, 54 cents to our male counterparts' $1 bill. Now, over 40 years, this kind of wage disparity is huge. Did I mention large? So on average, a white woman will lose $527,400 over 40 years. Now, clearly she could have saved some of that. Yeah. And that could have been waiting for her as a nest egg in retirement. Black and brown women would have lost over 40 years, $942,000. I'm rounding. Indian and transgendered women, $1,035,000, and Latino and Hispanic, $1,121,000 over 40 years, which is a whole lifespan of work. Typically, that's how we think of it, Social Security and so forth and so on. So the aspect of this wage inequality calls women, it's just always very perverse, right? How sometimes what we in society might call the victims to come up with the rule book and to fix things, right? So it's our, we're in the middle of it, and then it's our responsibility to correct it. Yet we must. Now, how does that translate?
Let me ask you this.
One more thing along wage.
Pause 1 second right there.
Yeah.
So that's here in the U.S. Now look at globally how that has. I mean, it's depressing when you look at what women are earning in some of the emerging countries.
Well, this is exactly right, and I actually really take the responsibility of living in the United States of America. I own my white privilege. I own my middle class privilege, upper middle class privilege, and we are being watched. We must be the leaders because the rest of the world is counting on us. And the rest of the women need role models to whom they can look. And so it's incumbent upon us to, one, do our part that will obviously benefit us, and yet ultimately be the beacon and shine the light for masses behind us, and we don't even know who they are. We just know there's droves of them, right?
Yes.
So that's a problem.
And it's pretty, I think, humbling when you think that when you have that understanding of the financial landscape and you're able to translate that message to someone else so that they can apply it in their lives, you've now impacted generations, right?
Exactly.
Because now that person is now educating her children who are making better and wiser decisions. So it's an amazing ripple effect.
It certainly is, Luana. And I want to say one more thing about wage inequality. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair yet. Women deserve raises. Hello. Yet 99% of the cases, now this is not statistical, this is different. 99% of the cases, women have to ask. There's studies, and women timidly, and they think, I'd like to have a raise, and he got a raise, and I'm doing twice so much work. And so this woman finally mustered up the courage after like 3 years, went to her boss and said, I'd like a 3% raise. Now she'd already waited 3 years. And he says, okay, like that. It's like strawberry ice cream. Okay. And like almost to dismiss her, get out of the office. And she said, what? So you're just saying, okay. And why didn't you reach out to me and give me a raise. And he said, I never thought about it. What? So men are going into that corner office with an appointment, and they are laying out what they need for a raise and what they want for a raise. And they're getting a pat in the back and they're leaving with their raise. And we are sitting back, and we can no longer sit back. It's, again, to your point, not just for us. Because if we sit there in a position of more power than maybe several other women in that very company or organization or network of entrepreneurs, we stifle them. So I'll turn that back on us, right? It's good for us to be leaders and to be beacons of hope. And then it's also not so good if we, commit the sin of omission. Because I was raised Christian fundamentalist. Commission sins, omission sins. We really need to cover the waterfront. So we got to ask. Now, it's really amazing to me that we are dealing with systems, Luana, that are permeating our very lives and almost every single fiber of our lives. Now, I know we're going to get into women's celebrating the 100th anniversary of the suffragette movement and the women's right to vote, and let's just
and I definitely wanted to dig into that, because that what you just said as far as women silencing themselves. I mean, the men didn't say you can't ask for a raise. We just, for whatever reason, there's this fear or preconceived notion that we can't, or maybe we don't even know how. We don't have the, I liked one person was saying the audacity, meaning that bold, tenacious stance to say, I'm going to demand what I want, and I'll let you tell me no, but I'm not going to get a no simply because I chose not to ask. So let's talk about the voting and how it's an extension of our voice and why it's so important for us to engage in the vote. Again, this isn't so much a political conversation, but we know the voting shapes our lives, where our children go to school, the types of services that are in and around our communities. So I'll toss it over to you.
Thanks. It surely does. And just to close one little loop on the finance issue, I was in the Strategic Coach Master Program, and there were very bright people there. I was like the least of them. And the owner of the company, the originator of it, Dan Sullivan, said, if 30% of your clients, now I'm talking to entrepreneurs, if 30% of your clients aren't pushing back on your prices, you're not charging enough. Right. So we've just talked about W-2 people going in and asking for the raise from their boss. Yet now let's shine a light on entrepreneurs. Why are we struggling instead of thriving? And so we want to go ahead and raise our prices commensurate with what the market is already commanding, and get over ourselves if one person says that much. Because if 30%, that's the statistic, and heavens, that had to be a dozen years ago. He said that if 30%, think of it, women, if 30% aren't saying no, heck no, you're not charging enough. And the people that do come aboard for the price that you're worth, yes, you are, they are going to get a multiple of what you charge. Now, I'm not advocating for a moment for us not to, especially as entrepreneurs, give away a certain segment of our time for the people who simply can't afford it. I'm all there. I do my share, and probably more, and we all do. Such that I want to keep those bifurcated, right? That's our choice. Now, let's talk about the women's right to vote. 12 women, right, many of whom suffered in prison, went on hunger strikes, were beaten, abused, tortured to get the right to vote 100 years ago. August 18th. August 18th. A good number of those women were Black women. And for them to stand out and say something when they were otherwise silenced because of their race, first of all, is quite remarkable. So we've got Sojourner Truth, right? We've got Elizabeth Cady
Right.
Stanton. We've got, I didn't know them all by heart. So Lucretia Mont, Amelia Bloomer, Susan B. Anthony. Frances Allen Watkins, Mary Lacode Bethune, excuse me.
Bethune.
Last women, Bethune, of course, were Black women. Lucy Stone, Daisy Elizabeth Adams, Alice Paul, Ida Wells, a Black woman, and Mary Clairol Terry. It's bad when you can't read your own writing. These 12 women were completely out there knowing that we needed a voice, first of all, and we need a bigger voice. And so fast forward to today, when we have a record number of people voting in the latest election, I celebrate that. And ultimately, the system has a lot of built-in inequalities that will only be changed with system-like cures and system battles. And you can only battle the system from within the system. So we need to be there and vote with our feet at the ballot or pre-mail-in absentee in order to elect people that are looking out for the humanity and the equal treatment of people for whom that treatment has not been equal. And once we do that, they may be still little tiny voices comparatively, and yet they are voices and they will multiply. And we've already seen vestiges of it already. So the fact is, to thrive in our right to vote, yes, ma'am, we must vote every single election. Our lives depend upon it. And I'm not kidding.
They do. I love that. So
there's a system right there, LaWanna, right? There's a system. And so I always like to I have 1 foot in the system and 1 foot in my personal power circle. Okay. So the system demands or gave us the right to vote as women. It's our personal responsibility to vote. Now there's moves afoot to reduce our abilities to vote. And so it becomes a systematic thing again. And so now we have to fight back the systems and we have to call our representatives and say how we feel. And so this vacillation between the personal and the systemic is real, and it has to play out. Now, the whole financial thing, it's the system that causes us as women to typically earn a lot less than our male counterparts. And yet it's our personal opportunity to invest wisely. No one's telling us how much to save. No one's telling us where to save.
Right.
It's our choice. And we must take that choice seriously. And instead of playing this little tiny small role, being fearful of risk, which of course is the currency for return, so many women I've encountered invest in certificates of depreciation. And that's not going to grow along with the pace of inflation. And then you throw in taxes sideways, and pretty soon we're sinking instead of swimming. And so it's my personal and professional penchant to educate women, particularly about the investment vehicles, and just using history as an example from a return standpoint, because no one can tell you what the future will hold, myself certainly included. But stocks have typically returned a good twice as much as bonds. Now, I don't know if you heard the saying when you were growing up, don't send a boy to do a man's job. Yeah. But I heard it. Yeah, I was raised on a farm. And so my dad would, get this little, I read this little wrench, and he'd say, don't send a boy to do a man's job. Don't send a girl to do a woman's job on our retirement savings in particular. Do not send a bond to do a stocks job. It's as much of a misfire as any other, jamming a square peg into a round hole. You can bruise your forehead doing it. And I don't know if you can feel, maybe you do feel comfortable. Maybe women do, I guess they feel at some level comfortable that this is something they know and it's guaranteed. And I'll guarantee you one other thing. Between now and when we die, unless it's this afternoon, inflation is going to cost us more money in the future. And unless the money we're pushing ahead performs in a fashion that exceeds inflation and exceeds taxes, we're going to be out there in our quote unquote golden years, not being able to afford to live. Now, what is this?
Let's pause right there because we're almost out of time. And I want our audience, you'll definitely let them know how they can contact you again. This is a lot of information. I know we're packing it in tight, but we want you to just be aware that we have individuals that are here to help guide, educate, provide you with solutions, tips, strategies in order to improve the life of yourself and your family. I mean, this is about you and yours. Simply put, you and yours. Once you make that change, then you can start impacting the world. So talking about impact, Debra, tell us about the woman who shaped your life, who made a difference in your life.
Well, I am so delighted to talk about my paternal grandmother, Grandma Morrison. She was forever my cheerleader, and I loved her to pieces. And I wasn't knee-high to a grasshopper, a little squirt. And I would ride my bike out the lane of the barn, and her house was at the corner, and they had a huge oak tree. I mean, it was tall, and I was little. And my grandmother was rocking on the front porch. And I went up to her and I said, Grandma, I'm going to climb the tree. She says, wait a minute, like this, wait a minute. And I thought, oh, shoot, she's going to tell me not to. She goes in the house. She comes back out. She has this large red handkerchief. And she said, now, you stuff that in your pocket. And when you get to the top, you tie a knot and another knot and another knot to prove you were there. Words can't describe the adrenaline that shot through me. I flew up that tree, and several times I was looking back through the branches. Grandma, you see me now? See me now? She goes, I see you. Keep going. Keep going. And I was at the top, and I was a little squirt, and the wind was blowing, and I was flying back and forth, and I'm knotting it. And she goes, give it one more knot. And I did. And that handkerchief lasted, I think, almost 10 years. And I was so enthralled to have my grandmother, who was socialized far more punitively than I, saying to me, you can do it. And so I feel so strongly about We Can Do It Women. I trademarked it. It's my trademark. We can do it, women. We are doing it, women, and we can do even more.
I love that. I want to give you a moment just to give a lasting word to our listening audience and to tell them again how they can reach you.
Well, thanks. And I do invite you to choose to challenge, because failure is not the end. Failure is actually sprinkled along the path to success. And unless we risk, we're not living, right? So let's just learn how to handle our fear around risk. Let's define risk in a different way. And I do that a lot. So go ahead and email me at TEAM at Women Navigating Finances. My website is www.womennavigatingfinances.com, or my Facebook group, Women Navigating Finances, and participate, shout out, PM me a question. I mean, let's get involved and let's bring our community of women together and empowered move us all forward, because people are watching. People are watching.
I love that. Thank you so much, Debra, for joining me on this Women's History Month episode. Hashtag Choose to Challenge. As always, it's a delight.
It's certainly my delight as well. And thanks so much for having me, Luana.
And to our listening audience, we will see you on another upcoming series of Women's History Month. Hashtag Choose to Challenge. You've heard it here from Debra L. Morrison. Please reach out to her if you want to just know a little bit more about your finances, how you can make a difference. She's here to guide you. Again, 40 years of experience. Don't let it go to waste, ladies. And as we always say and celebrate you, love yourself, embrace yourself, and whatever you do, celebrate you. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.